You ready for this intro?
Go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the DrivingMaul. But no, do not adjust your monitors, your speakers, or your headphones. I am not Paul. As much as I would love to be as skinny as he is and keep my youthful good looks, we have to learn to love ourselves as we are. So moving quickly along, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Steve. You may know me from my own YouTube channel, or you may have seen me here before on the DrivingMaul's channel. Cornflakes Crib is where you can find me, and where some of you may know me from already. Shameless plug, I'm not going to deny it. Nearly 8 you, I love you all, thank you. But I'm going to be your host for tonight's brand new show on the DrivingMaul, which is the All Blacks Edition EP1. It's just like Star Wars, except we're making them the right way around. Do not fear though, Paul is still hanging around here and we're going to hear from him in just a second. But first off, we're going to go over what we are going to be looking forward to tonight. Obviously, this show is all about the All Blacks, and effectively we're going to split this up into two little parts. First up, we're going to be discussing three major topics, all obviously around the All Blacks. Question 1 will be about the big player exodus that seems to happen around New Zealand all the time. Question 2 is going to be about the Pacific Tours, possibly more games for the All Blacks in the upcoming years. And then question 3, what are the big targets for the All Blacks in 2018? Following that, of course, the big part of the show, we're going to be moving into your questions from the chat. This is the big part, and this is where the big man himself, Paul, comes in. He'll be looking after you guys in the chat room, and he'll be bringing us, your guests as well, which you'll be meeting very, very soon, all the questions from the chat. Now, there's one way only that you can make sure that your question is answered, and that is through the super chat. So go familiarise yourself with that right now, because we will be answering every question that comes in through the super chat. Otherwise, if you do it the old-fashioned way, there's going to be a chance you might miss out, because it's down to Paul's discretion who actually gets their questions through that way. And I mean, you don't want to leave it to chance, guys. You want to make sure your question and your voice is heard. So make sure you check out the super chat. Obviously, though, this is a show that thrives on live interaction, and it's the people that make it the amazing show it all is. So for all you out there who are listening and watching, the best place to join us is at 8 p.m. New Zealand time every Wednesday for DrivingMaul, the All Black Edition. We'll be going episode 2, episode 3, on and on from there. So make sure you join us at 8 p.m. on Wednesday and make your typed characters heard on the show. So if you're not watching live, you know what to do next week. Finally, if you are watching on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast, don't forget to subscribe to the channel or the podcast. Ding the bell, leave us 5 stars review as well. Make sure that we fall into your eyeballs and your eardrums each and every week, which is the best thing to do since sliced cheese, because we're progressive and we've moved on from bread. Now, I've been told there is other options, but if you like my amazing intros, my presence on the channel, my comical chat along with my insightful and hard-hitting comments, I suggest you sub, ding, and hit those 5 cheese slices or stars, however you're going to see it. Right. Now, these guys have been waiting patiently for my well-established and long-winded intro. The guests on the show, we have, of course, Paul still here. We have a couple of guests, but first things first, let's meet the man himself. Paul, you're still here, but you're on the pine here today. It's almost like a player-manager out there. How's the chat looking early on?
Oh, it's good. We've got everyone is cracking up, and you've got them laughing, so that's all good. Yep, good. Brett and Christian are in the house as always. So evening all, and I say I'll be in the chat, so do chat to me right there, and I'll be back in the second half.
And he is out of here. He is gone. Right. The 2 other people we're going to have on that are going to be chatting to us is, of course, we'll start with Ashwin. Now, Ashwin, you built a reputation being the noisiest part of Eden Park once upon a time when the Blues were actually good. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, look, thanks for that, Steve, and looking forward to the new show, talking all things All Black. It takes the attention away from the Blues.
That's a good excuse for it as well. And the other guest we got on the show today is Ryan. Now, I'm not going to be mean to Ryan, because he's built a reputation of building a fantastic sports app, which you go check out, Tribe Sports. Welcome along to the show. How are you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Great to be here, and keen to get chatting about some All Black rugby.
Right. Let's do exactly that as well. First things first, like we said in the little intro there, player exodus. It's a problem, or I guess would you call it a problem, is probably the thing we'll talk about the most for New Zealand rugby and for the All Blacks. A lot of players, a few players leaving this season, but overall, what are you guys made of it? How do you see this going on for the players that are leaving Super Rugby and obviously the All Blacks this year?
Well, I think basically when you look at the list that we've got in front of us, which obviously everybody else can't see, it's secret. The key thing there is the fact is that you're losing a lot of experience. They're people that have been around for a few years now, and they've got that experience. And what we're starting to find at any level of rugby, it's the experience that counts, in terms of the tight moments and matches. And so that's the thing that stands out, is the amount of experience that's walking out the door. In terms of All Blacks players and sort of thing, there's about 3 players I sort of think that current or All Blacks or fringe All Blacks. Obviously Sopawanga is probably the highest of the lot. That sort of, it's a shame to lose him, because I think that is the biggest loss of the whole lot that we've got there.
Yeah, I think if you look at the list of guys that are going, I think personally it's going to affect super teams more than it is the All Blacks. Looking down the list of guys, you haven't really got any first string All Blacks. Jerome Kaino is probably the one name who jumps out that has been a first stringer. But we're looking towards the World Cup, and it tends to be that the All Blacks work in these 4-year cycles around the World Cup. No one on that list, I think, would say that they were a certainty to play in the World Cup. I think someone like Sopawanga saw the writing was on the wall, saw his value was the highest as it is, and said, right, this is my time to cash in. And he's gone overseas. And then you've got the 2 probably big names that are, the other 2 big names are Jerome Kaino and Liam Messam, coming towards the end of their career and saying, look, I'm certainly not going to be there next year for the World Cup, so they're off as well. All those other guys are just fringe All Blacks, if that.
Yeah, yep, go Steve, sorry.
No, you.
Yep, I was just going to say Ngatai is the one that sort of in that fringe category that it's a shame really. At the end of the day, it's the injuries that have hurt him. It's the concussions, because he is a class player. He's got that ability. It's the injuries that have really worked against him, and I think he's made the right choice. I think he's still got a shot at the All Blacks, but as we all understand, you only get one chance on the merry-go-round, on the rugby merry-go-round. He goes and plays for the All Blacks, gets another serious concussion, and he'll never play again type scenario. He might as well take the opportunity to go make some money to set himself up for the future.
Yeah, you look through those names you got there, there's probably a couple you could say the same sort of thing. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm talking Seta Tamani Balu, for one, George Moala possibly as well, as much as I dislike him. Possibly a guy that could have featured a lot more for the All Blacks the way he's gone. Do you think those guys are in a similar sort of boat? They're not massively injury prone, but is this just a case of that the kind of mentality, I guess, from players like that, that prioritise family over probably their career a bit more? A lot of those guys, you think, falling into that boat?
Well, I think it becomes a question of what their goal is, and I think if they're playing rugby to make a living and to support their family and set up their future, then I think absolutely now's the right time to go for those guys. If the World Cup dream is what they're after, then maybe they would have stayed. And there's probably some guys that are similar ability and in similar positions who have elected to stay and will keep pursuing that goal rather than taking the money. And then you might see them going at the end of next year, either having fulfilled that dream or not. So, yeah, I think it comes down to what's priority. And I think you've seen in the past guys like Charles Piutau, who's come out and said, look, money was important for me and my family and as community back in Tonga. So he went that option when he would have still been an All Black now if he'd stayed.
Paul, you got a thought for us there?
Yeah, we were talking about players who have stuck around and not made a move. You've got to say someone like Matt Todd springs to mind in that kind of vein, who might eventually get himself into this next Rugby World Cup squad.
It's interesting you mentioned Matt Todd. I think that comes down to a whole culture thing down in the Crusaders land as well, because you look at someone like a Wyatt Crockett, who's basically is going to finish his career with the Crusaders. He's not even going to go and play European rugby at all. In fact, he's going to go play in Tasman. So I think there's a culture thing happening down there as well, where the guys that are long-term Crusaders players stick around. I mean, I know there have been the ones that have come and gone, but they're the ones that have come into the area. But if you look at somebody who's born red and black, for want of a term, they seem to stick around and not take the money up.
Yeah, I agree with what you say. It comes down to what's important to the players. Some guys are driven in their career by World Cups, trophies, caps. Other players are driven by securing their family, securing their own well-being as well. And that comes down to a lot of it for a lot of these guys, especially like the guys from the island countries as well. Those guys that come over here, that's their goal, is security, is a better life. I mean, not being mean to those guys, but that's what drives them. Whekatawas, Piatau's, you've mentioned those guys already before. That's the big thing about them. And when you get those big cash offers, that sorts everything. And they're well on their way after that. But you talk about that, how the players, go get the cash. But I think this is something that also advantages the All Blacks in New Zealand rugby to a degree as well, because we don't see veteran players, as you will. I mean, yes, Dan Carter, great, one of the best fly half in the world. You'd probably not argue against that. But it stops players, or it seems to not have players stay around as long after they're past their best, and allows a bit of rotation through New Zealand rugby and through the All Blacks as well. Is that something you agree with, that it's something that actually does advantage New Zealand and produce that sight for younger players that the future will be good for them?
Actually, one of the things we talked about in last night's show actually is the fact is that it's actually a downside from my point of view, because what we're losing is the experience, teachers, the sensei, the Jedi Master that comes along and teaches the young crew coming through. I mean, we talked about it within Auckland Rugby, and that's one of the biggest problems with Auckland Rugby. I mean, there's many problems, but, the experience, the props are the best example, because props at club rugby at that Mitre Cup level play 2 to 35, 36, 37. But the big thing that they bring is that lessons for the young guy coming through, and what he needs, where he needs to be at, and what he needs to do, the tricks of the trade and that sort of thing. So I think in an element we're missing out on that side of things. So to me, it's actually a bit of a negative. But at the end of the day, you can't do anything about it, because that's when those guys go make their money. For whatever reason it is, whether it's family, they're securing their future, or for their own other goal of some sort.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably on the fence about it, whether it's an advantage or a disadvantage. But I think what it's done is it continually proves that, we've got this player development system that goes right down to, junior club rugby, through schools rugby and into club rugby, that no matter who leaves, there's kind of next cab off the rank. And you're certainly going to get, guys that are leaving that are once in a generation players, like your Carters and your McCaws. But you look at who's come in and filled their shoes. Bowden Barrett, Sam Cane, two of the best going around in their positions in the world. So, perhaps it is an advantage to have those guys kind of, I guess, aspiring to be an elite player behind that guy that's entrenched in there. And when they leave, it just kind of opens up the door for someone else to come in and kind of fill the boots. So it's an interesting question. Until we see the All Blacks kind of failing, I don't think we can ever say it's a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that too. We've talked about the Carters and McCaws, obviously, that big exodus that the New Zealand Rugby and the All Blacks faced in 2015. Heading into the World Cup year next year, looking at these guys that are leaving the Northern Hemisphere, Australia, South Africa, they all believe that every single year when they see this list of All Blacks or players leaving New Zealand, they always go, yes, this is, you guys are losing so many players, this is when we're going to get you, this is when you're going to fall down, you're going through a rebuilding phase. I look at this and I say, no problem. Do you think the All Blacks are in trouble at all with the guys that they're going to lose this year?
I think it's what Ryan just said, isn't it? At the end of the day, we've got the class players coming through at this stage. We've got a player development system that keeps popping them out. Until the All Blacks starts losing, it's just not an issue. And at the moment, it's not an issue for us fans too, because we actually see the players coming through the system that are saying, oh wow, yeah, no, he's going to fill those boots, and we should be right. If we start to sort of doubt as fans, and it's like, and now you also get the coverage of the under-20s where you can see players coming through. if you start to see, hang on, where's the player coming through in this position? Where's the player coming through? Then we'll start to get that doubt, and obviously that'll filter through and the confidence will go down. But hey, at the moment, as Ryan said, the players just keep popping out.
Well, I think you saw it last year with the front row injuries that the All Blacks had, and probably that was one time where people were starting to question, who's gonna take the place of Joe Moody and Owen Franks and Wyatt Crockett when they were hurt, and then kind of out of nowhere comes Nepo Lalala and Kane Hames. Not out of nowhere from our perspective because we follow the game and we understand that these guys are around and in the system. But like you said, talking about those other nations who are probably thinking, right, here's our chance. All Blacks scrum's probably going to be weakened, and then these guys just come in and nothing changes. So, yeah, it's great for us. It's probably at times not great for World Rugby because we just continue to be a step above everyone else. But
it's quite funny. It's like, go back to 2011 and we had Brad Thorne and Ali Williams in the second row. And I can't remember there was another third lock there as well at the time. And you're sort of thinking, shit, these guys are going to retire. Whoops, sorry. These guys are going to retire. Who's going to come along? And then it's like, holy crap, there's Brad Thorne, Sam Whitelock and Brody Retallick.
They just keep pulling them out. That is the beauty of New Zealand rugby. Like you say, we've been seeing it for years and years, and I look at that list of players leaving. I mean, for those of you who felt the advantage of the list, Moala, Kaino leaving from the Blues, of course, Charlie Ngata and Liam Messon, the bigger ones from the Chiefs. The Hurricanes, Fedalofa, Thompson, and everyone's favourite player, Ihaya West. I know a lot of people are going to be gutted about that. Tamani Valu from the Crusaders. And of course, probably the biggest one, I think definitely the biggest one, is Lema Sopawanga from the Highlanders, departing away to Wasps. So France is really making signing those big checks, aren't they? To steal all the best players. Clermont, Lyon, Toulouse, Toulon, all of them. Bordeaux, picking up a lot of those players as well. So, the French, I mean, this isn't the All Blacks, but I mean, this is why French rugby is really going down a big spiraling depth, isn't it? I mean, when they just sign all these New Zealand players and you look at their teams and they're full of former All Blacks. So what do they expect to happen from that? But I think we'll skip through part one after that. Nothing else to add there from you guys about the player exodus this year?
No, I think we covered it off from my point.
All covered. Let's move on. Question number 2. Pacific Tour. More games for the All Blacks. Probably the biggest point of this all. Should it happen? Should the All Blacks go to the Pacific Islands more often? I mean, regularly, each year, possibly.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
That's all you got? Nothing to expand on that? Why? Why should they go there every year?
Have you come across any fan of All Blacks rugby doesn't want to see us play in the Pacific Islands more?
What's the gain from going to the Pacific Islands?
I'm
not against this, but financially, which is what World Rugby is all about, there's very little gain, nothing to gain from going there.
It's the Winston Peters effect. For those,
oh God,
it's this effect giving back to the Pacific Islands.
I think, from my perspective, like, Steve, maybe you don't understand as much living in the deep south, but being someone who lives in Auckland, and I grew up in West Auckland and went to a school that's, got a lot of Pacifica people, played rugby with guys that had gone on to play for Tonga and Samoa. There's just something about those Pacifica teams that I feel an affinity to. Like, behind the All Blacks, my second team would be Fiji, Tonga and Samoa all equal. And the hardest thing is deciding who to support when they play each other. And I almost feel like, the Pacific Island communities have given New Zealand rugby so much that there is a duty of care to go back and give them something. World rugby, if we're ever going to compete as a global sport, can't just rely on these sort of Big Ten teams, with the Six Nations and then the Rugby Championship. We need more teams to grow the game. We need North American rugby to be strong. We need Japan to be strong. And we need the Pacific Islands to be strong, as well as these emerging Eastern European nations. So growing the game and getting World Rugby to a point where we've got maybe, 16, 18, 20 teams that are competitive that's the end goal, I think.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's interesting. Ryan's touched on a few points that I was going to. It's about the big teams out there, like the All Blacks, like England, etc. Going out there and growing the game. There's this responsibility. We can do that. We can achieve that, and there's the space there to do it. England with as Ryan's just alluded to, those Eastern European countries, the Georgias, etc. that are doing well. I mean, we've talked about this in previous shows with Rugby Chat, that, they've got a great forward pack. Their back line might be a bit, not so great, but that's about, getting experience and getting more game time. That's the same thing with Fiji, Samoa and Tonga. We just giving them more game time and giving them exposure and getting that excitement up there as well. There's other competitions with other sports within the islands and the Pacific Islands. So, we've got to wave that rugby flag up there too.
Paul's got some reports from the bench. What you got?
Oh, I haven't. I was want to butt in. Archie's going about the Georgia forward packs. Perhaps we should, instead of having we talked about this last night, having the Southern Hemisphere Lions, perhaps we should have the Eastern European and Pacific Islanders Lions, and have Georgia's pack with the Pacific Island backs as a touring side. Perhaps not geographically obvious, but hey, perhaps holistic in another way.
Yeah. Language barrier could be a problem. I guess backs and forwards don't talk to each other anyway, do they? So probably isn't going to be much of an issue there anyway.
There are a couple of comments saying about going the Pacific Nation guys into Super Rugby. They're a great talent and all that kind of stuff, which we all would love to see. But again, it all comes out of cash, doesn't it? So when are you going to fit all these Pacific Island games in?
Oh, look, I think that we've seen in the previous years that they've been able to fit in a warm-up game against one of the Pacific Island nations. So you've got three that we keep, obviously the obvious ones in terms of Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga. If you paid one each year, on a 3-year rotation with one-off games up in the islands, that works. There's time for it.
Well, the other option is you ditch the third Bledisloe, which is a dead rubber normally anyway, and that's the game that replaces that. So on the way to the Northern Hemisphere, stop by on the islands.
Right, look, the other thing is that, and they've done this, I think they did that against Samoa when the All Blacks went to play up there, was that it came down to either semi-finals or the final. There were 2 New Zealand teams in it. That means there's 3 New Zealand teams that aren't. That means that you pick the All Black squad out of the 3 teams that aren't, and you go play an All Blacks test up there, while the 2 New Zealand teams not bash each other up in the final. Last year it was the Hurricanes Lions, so you would have had 4 teams to pick from. So, the time is there to be able to achieve it.
Crusaders Lions last year. But...
Sorry, my bad. Yes.
He's going a year too far back there. Goodness
yeah,
me.
Yeah, I'm old.
Memory like a sieve. Used to that. Yeah. We've covered most things there, I think. You talked a little bit about how often you'd want it to happen. You're talking yearly. Is that the big obvious choice?
I think with the 3, you're trying to get those games for all 3 nations. There probably needs to be a yearly test and cycling through it. I don't really see another way it would work in terms of the All Blacks playing them.
Just a thought. I think you'd give the Pacific Island nation the option of whether they play it at home or in New Zealand. Because obviously with Fiji, they've got a big stadium and they could fill it. Samoa and Tonga, they might make more money by having it here in New Zealand. Paul needs to go Lou again.
No. You can see this, but it doesn't make very good podcasting. And also, I'm not actually on the TV when I put my hand up. No. Don't let them choose to have the game in Australia or New Zealand, because the whole idea of having the game up there, it is a game there for the fans, but also B, it lets them build up the financial and the business connections if they have a definite game every year. And it allows them to grow that side.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. I just have concerns about the financial management of those unions, and the running of those games. But you're right in one sense. Is like, well, if you don't give them that opportunity, then that'll never get fixed either.
It's interesting It's interesting to see that there's a little quad series coming up in the June window this year with Fiji, Tonga, Romania, and Georgia, with all the games being played in Fiji. So I think there'd probably scope there too for, if the All Blacks were playing Fiji, maybe Tonga and Samoa play in Fiji as well as a curtain raiser, a double header kind of scenario, or one of them plays someone else. I think there's creative ways too that they can do this and manage it where you get the buy-in from the fans and you fill those stadiums too. So.
Yeah, just one quick thing though. Romania's pulled out and has been replaced by Samoa because of the whole fun and games that's happening around the European Rugby Championship and player eligibility. That changed last week.
Still good to got games. But I find it interesting though that in that whole discussion, I started off talking about financially, but we rotated around everything about this whole thing and then ended up talking about financial matters. Everything revolves around money. Business, I guess rugby is business essentially, and that's what it all is. You got to build that game up, and you're right in what you say. It is building the game in those areas, which is the biggest part that needs to be done, and making the global game a lot stronger, especially in those Pacific nations over there. Right, that about does us for question 2. I'm hosting. Of course, it's going to go far too long. You should have known this, Paul. It's always going to happen. Let's go on. Question 3. What are the big All Black targets for 2018? Let's break it down. June internationals. The French are coming. Obviously, they want to sweep this. They want to sweep it in 2 games, and game 3, you're going to see some new guys possibly. Are they going to use this for a bit of depth building in the third test and go 3-0?
Historically, they don't really use the June test as a kind of, a time to build depth. So it'd be interesting to see if they do or not. I think with this test series, the team doesn't get as much time to spend together in the lead up to it. So I think we've seen in the past under Hansen is that he kind of sticks with the tried and true, which is going to make it interesting because there's guys knocking on that door to try and get into that squad. My gut feeling, though, is that he'll stay patient and wait to the end of year tour before bringing them in, as is generally his way.
But
absolutely.
Will the Rugby World Cup coming up soon kind of affect that and say, hey, you've got to get them in early, otherwise there's not enough games before the Rugby World Cup?
Good question. Don't have an answer.
I saw there was an answer brewing in that. This was when it was going to come.
I'm sort of thinking, basically, first 2 games they go status quo and maybe introduce a couple of players on the fringe in that third game for the French series, that is, and more likely just around sort of the outside backs and obviously the obvious one, the man that's being talked about, Ben Lamb, sort of coming into a picture for that last game. Maybe they might test out somebody in the second row because they want to build some backup to Retallick and Whitelock.
I think that's the key question is where do they see, what positions do we need a little bit more depth in? I think everyone would love to see Ben Lamb have a crack, but the problem is, look at the guys in front of him that are incumbents that are still test quality players, and part of it's going to revolve around where they fit Mackenzie in. Is Ben Smith going to play fullback or wing? Those kind of things. But there's a lot of guys that were blooded last year on the end of year tour, the likes of Havili and Matt Duffy. Lamb's probably gone ahead of them. But do they waste, that experience that they've given them? It'll be interesting to see.
Do we read anything into Rico Ioane playing on the right wing this weekend, freeing up space on the left wing for Ben Lamb?
I would suggest it's more that Caleb Clark can't play on the right wing.
I think you're right, but I just thought I'd drop that hand grenade.
Hey, just on the David Havili, I suppose he was like the star on the horizon last year, isn't he? Sort of rising. One thing I think that Ben Lamb sort of hopped ahead of him or jumped ahead of him is the fact is that when the Canes didn't have TJ Perenara there and the backline wasn't as effective, Ben Lamb still kept performing. What you saw with Havili, his performances weren't there when they had Moanga missing. Moanga comes back and all of a sudden he actually had a pretty good game again. So he needs people inside him to obviously set him up a bit more than, say, Ben Lamb, who can, the rugby cliche, make something out of nothing.
Oh, I can't. He was missing Moanga, Goodhue, Crotty, whereas with the Hurricanes, you've still got Barrett, Mappy, Proctor, Nemil Scudder, Geordie Barrett, and also on the bench. I mean, he's got no one to feed him.
There was, yeah, that's fair enough. But there was a game where there was a few. Even Barrett was rested when Ihia West started, and he had Ihia West there. Just saying.
So he just has entirely All Blacks, and except for Arso, who was top try scorer last season, equal with Mappy. There's no quality there.
Well, I don't. Look, I think we can all agree that Ben Lamb's been playing sublime rugby, and his name has to be in the mix. It's just a question of, who does he get ahead of? Because you've still got Ben Smith, you've still got Israel Dag, you've still got Waisake Naholo, you've still got Rico Ioane, Nehe Milner-Skudder's back playing. That's a lot of guys to get in front of, and that's without even talking about the likes of Havili and Duffy and those other guys that got some experience last year. So French tour, maybe. I think probably more likely the end of year tour.
It's interesting you talk about backs, outside backs, so I guess it's taken up a lot of that conversation there. What I think is probably an area that they're going to try to target is the halfbacks. Definitely a hole there. Do you see this area that third game, third Bledisloe later on as well, somewhere that definitely is going to see a newcomer to the team?
Well, as the third halfback, that's where the hole is. You've got Smith and Perenara. You have got the issue in the fact that Smith can't start off the bench. They've tried it. It doesn't work. He's not someone that starts off the bench. So you've also got that issue as well. He has to start. So who's our number 3 halfback?
Well, I guess it's
Triple T.
Probably wow. I'd say he's a bit down, but Pulu's been.
Sorry, sorry, I have to pull you up here. You're not allowed to
Triple T.
You're not allowed to refer to him by his nickname. Look what happened to Hansen when he did that. I mean, that's so disrespectful. You can't do that. Just because
that's okay. Everybody goes around calling me Ash. It's okay.
Just because all his friends, all his mates, and all the players call him Triple T. Yeah, no one else. Yeah, you're not allowed to in public.
I already thought, Paul, you'd be the last person to pull that up, just with history.
Well, hey, you'll notice I didn't actually try it. I let Ryan do that. I just refer to the fact that you should say it that way.
Yeah, I think coming back to answer Steve's actual question, I do think Te Toiroa Tahuriorangi is probably a little bit down the pecking order. I think it's probably between Pulu, Drummond and Hall for that third spot, and it's probably a case of what skill set the All Blacks kind of go for.
No room for Brad Weber, even to think.
No, personally.
Yeah, nah.
No, out of favour. Completely gone. I mean, he was the future, that guy was. It's interesting how things change. Recently, pulling back from injury, I think, made a big difference to the Blues, which definitely increased his stocks. He made a big difference coming back last weekend, so that's got to be definitely something they'll be watching over the next week or so, I guess, until they name their squad. But moving on through the matches that the All Blacks are coming up, Rugby Championship. Obviously, the key is going to be to win that. Good enough to sweep it from what you've seen from Australia and South Africa and Argentina. Let's not leave them out.
I think South Africa's got hopefully going to be a bit stronger than they have been previously. Strong enough to beat the All Blacks? Probably not. But hopefully we're going to see some level of competition coming back from there. I mean, there's some good players coming through in some of those Super Rugby sides, that we're starting to see some good performances through, and some exciting players as well, not just bashing it up and, taking it up, but you Q and Bosches of the world sort of thing, that are stepping their way through defences. So I'm hoping that the Springboks can step it up a bit this year, enough to beat the All Blacks. No, I don't think so.
They're definitely the team that's I think closest to rivaling us at the moment, regardless of what happened last year, over here anyway. So yeah, I think there's been some promising signs from the South African super sides. It's been great to see a bit more of an expansive mindset from them, particularly what we've seen from the Bulls and the Sharks. But the All Blacks, they're unbackable favourites.
You look at the Argentinian side, you got to have the question mark over them, is that, there's so many of them in the Jaguares that, they're going to be pretty tired come Rugby Championship, which isn't going to be good for them actually in Super Rugby following our Northern Hemisphere games, sort of, which they'll obviously have some games there and well, and they're going to be a pretty knackered outfit.
Yeah, every time we talk about this time of year, you always think about South Africa in South Africa. It's going to be probably the biggest test for the All Blacks. It's just too hard, despite the way Australia is at the moment, it's always too hard to completely 100% discount that team. They're like that annoying itch or something that just never seems to go away. They always seem to pull it up again against the All Blacks. Sometimes.
Talking about Wobblies.
Possibly. Do you not have that thought at your back? Are they even a thought? Have you completely discounted them?
The Wallabies have a shot, and this is why they have a shot last year, is because, it's mentally, for any player, doesn't matter how good they are, maybe apart from Brodie Retallick, is to basically have your performance at 100% week in, week out. And when you come up against a team that subconsciously you're thinking, well, they're a bit easier to drop your performance, and that's what could possibly make them competitive. That's the only thing that'll make them competitive, is that the All Blacks will drop their performance level against them, and that will be because of the subconscious sort of thing. Oh, it's an easier game. Sounds harsh, but true.
Bit complacent. Third leaders though in Japan. That's obviously the biggest chance.
Well, no, I think we've got to throw all our resources out, to tell you the truth. We've got to get back that DHL Cup.
The trophy cabinet will be bursting. Let's move on, because, the third Bledisloe is about as important as anything else when it's already said and done. November tours. Obviously, winning all these games, it's All Blacks. They obviously want to win every single match. But there's one big game in here. It was England. They've gone by the wayside now. It's Ireland. Everyone's talking about Ireland. All Blacks, Ireland is the big one. This is the decisive part, or the decisive game of this whole All Black season, do you think?
Well, we can't lose to Ireland again. That's as simple as that. It's kind of cool how it's worked out, though, in that, I still see that England game as a big game, and we've kind of now got two big games, and I guess a lot will depend on how England perform during the year, leading up to that. But because of the way it was all built up, England end of 2018, it's all going to be All Blacks England's going to decide it, and then all of a sudden England have slipped, Ireland have got up there, and now it's kind of like, hey, there's two big games, because this is proving against those big teams, and not the ones we just play every year. So, yeah,
look, England basically, they will be confident once again by the time the All Blacks get there, because they're going to go to Australia and beat them 3-0. Because if they don't, then those voices in their head are going to go mentally loud. Paul's going to say it's 2 test matches.
No, I'm going to say that they're going to South Africa and that Ireland.
They're going to South Africa. Sorry, my bad. Yes,
Ireland are going to Australia.
Ireland's coming to Australia. Yep. So they're going to have some. Yeah. So basically, they're going to have to. So actually, that makes it even more important for England to do well in South Africa, because those voices will get louder in their head for that game, Autumn International, against the All Blacks if they don't do too well against the South Africans. And it now just makes it even scarier for the Australians because they're facing Ireland. And depending on how many injuries they don't have to contend with, the Irish that is, then it will be a strong squad.
Well, I think Ireland will win that series probably 4-0, even though it's a 3-match series. That's how one-sided that'll be.
Bonus points for every 100 points you score.
It could be like the Ripper Rugby with that I coach. It's just like, it's 35-0 at half time, so they sort of have to sort of change players so they can make it a bit fairer.
Go see that international rugby rules. Reach a half century by half time. No, it's too unfair. Got to swap it around.
Okay. Swap the backs. Ireland backs are going, no, we won't get any ball. It's not fair.
Oh dear, they went off track pretty quickly, didn't it? Okay.
Guys, bring it back serious though. I think, as Ryan's saying, it's as long as England don't end up too sort of doubtful of their own abilities out of the South African tour, there'll be two big games at the end of the year. Obviously, the Ireland one will be the bigger of the two at the moment, but I think we play England first.
Yes. So what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think the All Blacks are going to sweep that tour, or do you think they're going to find a speed bump along the way?
It's always hard. Like you look at each test and you go, well, we're not going to lose that. But to win a whole season's worth of tests is a hard task. To be up for every game, to be on your game for every game, 100% is a tough order. But then it's really hard too to kind of work out which game is the potential speed bump. And I think there's probably 4 where it could happen. South Africa in South Africa, Australia in Australia if we're off our game, as Ashwin said, if we take them lightly. Complacency, and then those 2 at the end of the year, depending on how England kind of go. But I looking at each game individually, you go, well, where do we lose? But a perfect season is pretty tough. It doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, that's very true.
And this is the hardest one. I think that Ireland and England up there, it's going to be tough.
Especially at the end of a long season.
Yep. We don't know who's going to be left standing as well.
Yeah, injuries could definitely change the whole outlook of that for both sides as well. I mean, both teams have pretty key players, all 3 teams, if you talk about England as well, pretty key players that losing 1 or 2 of them for months could change the whole outlook of the whole entire thing. But that's pretty much all our big targets for 2018. And that is our big 3 questions that have always gone on far too long. I say it every video I make, but alas, on we go. Paul, come back to us here, friend.
Let's here.
Let's go to the questions. What have the Super Chat people been saying?
Not very much on the Super Chat, but anyway, let's go on to the... But I can say, is the whole Brad Shields thing going to actually make that England game a little bit more testy? Do you reckon?
Very testy for him.
Is he going to be the equivalent of the Blues player that goes and plays for another franchise and then comes back to bite?
Hopefully not literally. You get 6-week ban for that, you know.
You get 6 months. Don't do that. Well, actually, no. It was only 2 months, wasn't it, for the latest bite?
Yeah, 6 weeks. I think it was.
Whereas who was it? Johan LaRue got about 6 months. When he built, was it him that bit Fitzy's ear?
Yeah, Johan LaChue.
Rocking it old school.
I think the difference with Brad Shields leaving, a New Zealand environment compared to leaving the Blues is that, well, the Blues aren't very good, and where he's leaving is. So yeah, I don't have any fears about that.
The thing is with Brad Shields is he even international quality? Don't even know. He's a decent little Super Rugby player, but is he international quality? Why have you got your mouth open like that? He could not make that step up.
Really? Captain of the Hurricanes? I think... I mean, we've just been talking about the fact that all these Kiwi guys just step up and they're all just international quality. I mean, even Ryan was international quality in his prime. From the way we've been talking. So yeah, Super Rugby winner, captain and stuff. Yeah, he's plenty good enough to play international level.
Well, I think
tell Stephen Brett that.
I think the answer lies in he's not All Blacks quality. Neither was Gareth Anscombe. Neither was Hadley Parkes. Neither was Jared Payne. Neither was all those guys. Ricky Flutie.
Thomas Waldrum.
Bundyaki. Thomas the Tank Engine.
He is the player that I'm looking forward to seeing in the Meister 10 Cup. I'll tell you, he's the one player I'm really looking forward to seeing come back. Aviva Premiership top try scorer from number 8, 2 years running, coming back to play for Wellington in the Meister 10 Cup. That I've got to get down to Wellington for a game there, for one of those games.
Not as many rolling mauls in the Mitre 10 Cup though, so he might see his try scoring just drop a little bit.
Hey, he's deadly from 2 yards out. They're not all from a driving maul. I've totally lost train of thought. But no, Shields, he's good enough, definitely. The All Blacks wanted him to play in last November, so basically just to tie him up so he couldn't play for anyone else. That was a sneaky, naughty trick.
Never done that before.
Now, actually on that, anyone who gets one cap, anyone who gets less than 5 caps should be allowed to play for another country. This whole idea of tying someone down with just one game, I think is not right.
The classic one of that's Isa Nithiwa. It was about less than 5 minutes for Fiji in a World Cup. I think it was in a World Cup. Well, it was in it for Fiji anyway, and ruined his international career basically.
So, what do we think of the game of 3 halves? That's the warm up for the Rugby Championship. Is it?
I don't like it.
Is it a real game for any suspensions as well?
That's a game and a half, isn't it?
It's 3 games.
Yeah. They need some Asians in the team. Then they can work out that you don't have 3 halves.
3 halves don't make a whole.
Oh. But you can do more than 100% then. We comes back to a question we had previously. You've got this nonsensical game of 3 halves when you could be playing against one of the Pacific Island teams.
Oh, it's a glorified training run, but But the cool thing about it though is it goes out to community. So I mean, last year they had it at Pukekohe. A couple of years back they had one at Harbour, where it was Harbour Northland and the All Blacks. This year going to be in Christchurch, where we don't take test matches anymore because they got scaffolding stadium. So it's cool that we're getting, the All Blacks going to Christchurch and giving that community a chance to go out and see their heroes. So, treating it as a proper warm-up game and going, they could be doing so much better. Yeah, they could play a proper game, but it's a great hit out for them against teams that are preparing for their own competition as well. So I see merit in it. I've got no issue with it at all.
But you could take those, as I said, those Pacific Island games could go around the regions. They don't have to be played in, Auckland, Wellington, sort of Dunedin type scenario. They could be going around the regions as well. And, I'm just sort of thinking about the fact is that we all want to see those sorts of games, and is that talking about how we can fit them in. And that's an opportunity to fit them in somewhere.
It is interesting how it's kind of like an overhyped, what Ryan said, overhyped training run to keep Cantabrians happy who are complaining. Build a stadium already. Build a stadium, put a roof on it, build a stadium, then you're sorted. No problems. You get the All Blacks back.
They're going to pick up the pieces and build a Lego stadium.
How cool would a Lego stadium be?
Complaining about it, but that would be amazing.
Can we just point out that Ashwin's just dropped an Ed Sheeran lyric in our podcast?
Yes. Yes.
I totally missed that one. Did he?
No, you didn't need to. I just thought the Lego
as children today say, I'm gutted.
I was on it. I was on it.
Good, someone's hip. Yeah.
I'm gonna grow that hipster beard.
Dearie me.
Right, next question.
I wasn't going to question. I was going to keep on the whole thing. Isn't Dubai, or not Dubai? Where are they holding that World Cup in the Middle East? They're building temporary stadiums and then giving them away afterwards. Have one of those.
Qatar.
There we go.
Talking about Qatar. Yeah.
So yeah, we should. Let's start shipping lots of cows and milk to Qatar to buy a stadium for Canterbury. That's my offer, Christchurch. Obviously, Steve doesn't like that idea. Doesn't think that bartering cows for a stadium.
How insensitive could you possibly get?
I'm not sure what the grass growing is like in Qatar.
It's supposed to be pretty hot, from what I've heard.
We're going to kick off those World Cup games at about 10:30 at night, just so it's cool enough.
So it's 40 degrees.
They eat cows in Qatar. I'm not suggesting we ship cows to a Hindi country. Jeez, come on. It would be culturally insensitive. So I said we're going to send pigs to Qatar. Now that would be culturally insensitive. Look, cows are fine. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I think we should do. Other one, let's a more serious topic. Obviously, the RFU are going to make an absolute mint with the All Blacks test this November. Already, tickets are going for £400 each. Is it time for revenue sharing? Does World Rugby need to change those rules?
£400 or $400?
Pounds.
£400. Well, that's just ridiculous. And it makes what you're probably talking about. I think it was last night when you were talking about it, about the June internationals having to come to the Southern Hemisphere for monetary value reasons as well. Possibly, if there was a bit more to gain from the Southern Hemisphere when they went to the Northern Hemisphere, they could open up a bit more space for Pacific Island tours on that same time. It could have fallen into place by that, but I think they're ridiculous fees. Ridiculous fees. I was scoffing at going to pay $150 for an All Black ticket to Dunedin. 400? Oh.
Pounds.
800? Oh.
1,200.
Well,
even worse.
Whoa, no. When I came here in 2000,
what is the exchange rate these days? 50 cents?
No, it's 1. It's about 1.7, 1.8.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
777 New Zealand dollars it would be.
Yeah, I know. I'm completing on a house, selling a house in London on Monday. I'm not happy with the exchange rate. Everyone?
Leave the money out.
Everyone, Brexit's going to be fantastic for the UK, please. Buy lots of sterling. There you go.
To answer your question,
false news.
The thing about it is they can afford to charge that much because they're still going to sell it out. They don't sell it out if the All Blacks aren't playing there for that cost, right? That's why they can justify charging that much. So I think it's fair enough for a team to turn around and say, well, hey, the only reason you sell it out and make this, small fortune, big fortune, is because you're playing us. So we want a share of that.
I agree with what you're saying, Ryan. The thing is that for the NZRFU to then sort of say, okay, we're just not going to play you if you guys don't actually do revenue sharing, play hardball. There's plenty of other teams that'll, the All Blacks are the only ones that can go to America and sell out a stadium, right? Australia went and played Ireland last year, was it? Or they went and played someone, didn't sell out the stadium. Wherever the All Blacks go, they sell out the stadium. They've got that pulling power. They've got that muscle behind them. They should use it.
No disagreement.
Well, that's where you have this whole world or annual season calendar thing where you agree to play each other. And that's something that comes down to that. For the games outside that window, it's different, which is why there wasn't a game last year because the New Zealand asked for like £2 million or £1.6 million, something like that. And the RFU said, no, you have £1 million. And they went, no, we want more than that. And so the RFU said, no, we're not going to play you. And then they ended up playing the Barbarians at Wembley instead. So that was no, they have argued there has been a little bit of brinkmanship around that.
Raises another issue. What stops the All Blacks sort of running a game in Europe somewhere and them running that and taking all the profits from it?
Nothing. If they wanted to take the Rugby Championship games to Europe, Australia is thinking of taking some games to Twickenham or Wembley, I can't remember which one it is now, when they are rebuilding one of their stadiums in Sydney, for example. So Australia is planning on having or did they do it last year? They're planning on, didn't they have their home game against Argentina in Wembley or something? Or one of them. Or did Argentina have a home game in Wembley last year?
There's something that rings a bell vaguely, but I can't remember exact details on that one. But I mean, there's that option, you know. But I still think that the All Blacks, while they have the dominance, while they'll have the pulling power, should flex their muscles.
Trying to do research on the run tells us that all the games were played in the home stadium so far, and even Argentina played there. Newlands, nope, wasn't last year.
Wasn't
last
year.
You that. No.
I think there were plans to play one of the games there in the last couple of years. So if New Zealand pulled £400, what could the Aussies charge? Brett says 40. Now that's nasty. Okay, they can charge more than that. Close to 2,300. But when we talk about pulling power, one of the things
45.
One of the things we were talking about. One of the things that's happening at the moment is there is supposed to be a June game outside the window with the Springboks playing Wales in Washington DC, of all places, the week before the Springboks are playing England in South Africa, which means that they're giving themselves a travel inhibitor. That's not the word, you know what I mean. And apparently that's failing to sell tickets at the moment, and is part of the problems that the USA Rugby are having with the RIM, which is their financial arm that's basically going bust, which isn't very clever when that financial arm is also trying to run the Rugby World Cup Sevens. But let's hope they don't go bust before then.
It all comes down to brand, though, isn't it? The All Blacks brand is worldwide. It's massive. The Springboks brand, the Wallaby brand, it's not anywhere near what that All Black brand is like. We see their ads in Japan or Tokyo, wherever it was, chasing trains or whatever it was. That's just the mass that they bring. And like you say, it's all pulling power. Everyone wants the All Blacks. Everyone wants them in their ads. Everyone wants them on their shows. And I mean, look, when they went and played Ireland in America, look at all the stuff they did there as well. It was just immense. And
the promotion
Australia
around
will go there, and nothing happened. So they're just huge. And I mean, some of those guys, to us, were fringe players who you sit there and go, oh, why do they want to talk to this guy who's, in the wider training group hasn't even played a test, but he's an All Black. And he's in the All Black squad, and that's all they really care about, and that's what they know, and that's the brand.
Cool. I think we've come to the end of our question. Sorry, we've come to the end of our question.
One question.
Oh, go on.
How much does England charge when they play Italy in the Six Nations? Does anyone know that? Roughly? You're the Englishman.
I am. But I'm not
Englishman in Taranaki.
The Englishman in Taranaki who's not been back to the UK since 2005. So trying to buy Twickenham tickets hasn't been high on my priority list.
But you'd imagine it would be like, what, less than £100?
For the
top Six Nations game?
For the bottom end tickets, of course, but the top end tickets will still be well over £100. Your corporate ones.
Yeah, that's true.
And when they're quoting £400, they're talking about the expensive seats on the halfway line,
But they always quote, everybody always quotes the most expensive tickets. There was, the fantastic stuff articles and the people's comments in there. And somebody going on there going, oh, I'm not going to pay $500 to take my family to watch the All Blacks. I'll go watch somebody else play this other code. And it's only $150. It's just like, you've just picked the most expensive tickets in the stadium to add up to $500. I'm taking me, my wife, and my 2 kids to the All Blacks test against France for $210. And I'll pack a lunch because I'm an Indian.
We apologise to all who's watching the show.
It's just like, drives you nuts. Every time it's just like, how can average Joe punter go to watch the All Blacks play? They can't even watch their own team play anymore. And it's just like, but they quote the most expensive tickets, as you say, Paul, at halfway. When the reality is that there are plenty of good seats available at the D category price.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true. Right, we all wrapped up.
We are.
Nothing else to add.
We're not really wrapped up. Well, I'm sat here on tenterhooks, having had such a great comedy sketch for the opening, for the intro. I just can't wait for the outro.
Oh, they are. No, the start is where it's always the best, and we dwindle as we go on. So there's nothing too special to add on the outro. But we've had fabulous guests on the show today. I'm not going to be mean to them this time. Ashwin, where can people find you? Where can people come in and likely get a hold of you and attack some comments you've made today that they disagree with and have a go at you?
Oh, and ask you
have a go at me.
Winston Peter comments and rugby.
We're bringing political comments into this discussion.
It's just so topical. Yeah. Come and have a go at me at my Winston Peters comment at NZ Fatso on Twitter. And I'll see you there.
All right. Fantastic to have you on. I've been looking forward to actually doing the show with you. So good to finally do it. Where can people come and see you and get hold of your app?
Yeah, well, firstly, grab the app. So it's the Tribe Sports app. If you search it up in the Play Store or the App Store, I've got not just all your rugby coverage, but plenty of other sports as well. But certainly for all the rugby, live commentary of the Super Rugby and the World Series Rugby. And then we've got live scoring of all your European stuff, some local club rugby, some high school rugby as well. And if you want to hit me up on Twitter, then you can find me at New York Nixon.
Very good, and he's not going to be very used to doing this, but Paul, you're not last on the card tonight. Where can people get a hold of you and strike some rugby?
At DrivingMaul on Twitter.
We should all be doing that, really.
Yes, sorry. So the other boys don't realise that their Twitter handles are underneath them. So there we go. Yeah, so there, my Twitter handle's just there. And also, this YouTube channel, clearly podcasting, and www.drivingmaul.com for all your rugby predictions and opinion.
Excellent. And of course, I've been Steve, also known as Cornflake. You can catch me on Cornflake Scrib on YouTube and Twitter right there. We've got a big video coming out with a couple of these clowns as well this weekend, hopefully. Paul Nashvin will be joining me for, the All Blacks edition on the Crib, almost, will be coming your way. We're going to be predicting the All Blacks squad that's going to be named soon for the June International. So come check me out there and have a listen to what they think about that. Otherwise, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, and it's not nice to hit things more than once, so just do it once and make sure to stay there. Check out all the other videos we've got coming your way, and of course, 8 p.m. Wednesday. That's what you need to know to come in and have your comments answered, your thoughts, questions answered by whatever crew is going to be on next week as well. Also, you sign up to DrivingMaul's newsletter, and all the links you will find in the description below my Twitter handle. So go check that out. And as always, thanks for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed the show. And we'll see you all next week, 8 p.m. Until then, take care.